The perfect lemon meringue tart has a crispy pastry, tangy lemon curd, and light, billowy meringue on top. I'm going to show you how to make the whole thing. There are 3 parts to a lemon meringue tart: the pastry, the curd, and the meringue that goes on top. We're going to start with the pastry. If you'd like to learn more about how to make your own pastry, visit our basics segment on pie dough. Otherwise, let's get started. We're going to roll this out to about 12 inches so that it overhangs our 9-inch tart pan. So measure it against your tart pan to make sure that it is significantly bigger, a couple inches on all sides. Then we're going to roll this up and roll it out into our tart pan. Push the crust down into the tart pan, making sure you give a lot of slack so we don't stretch that pie crust around any corners. If you have any tears at this point, don't worry about it. Just grab a little piece of pastry and patch it up. Now take a sharp knife and cut around the rim of the tart shell. Remove any excess. You can make a little treat for yourself later if you want to with that. Continue to make sure that that pastry is pushed well down into the corners, and then we're going to do what is called docking, which is just pricking the bottom of the pastry with a fork. This is going to help the air escape from the pastry so we don't have too many bubbles. Really critical to help prevent this tart shell from shrinking is to let it rest in the refrigerator for at least 30 minutes. You can even freeze it if you want to. Once your tart shell has nicely chilled, we're going to do something called blind baking. That simply means to cook it with no filling inside. When we do that, we have to make sure the pastry doesn't bubble up in the center. The docking will help it a little bit, but we're going to line it with some aluminum foil and press it down with either pie weights, dried beans, copper pennies, or in our case here, we're going to use a bacon press. Crumple up that aluminum foil, straighten it out, and then make sure you get it into all the corners of this tart shell. Now we're going to transfer this to a preheated 350-degree oven. I always like to bake my tart shells on a cookie sheet just in case any of the butter seeps out and leaks. After 30 minutes at 350 degrees, remove whatever weight you're using and let the pastry continue to cook for about 10 to 15 minutes so the bottom of the tart shell can brown. In the meantime, let's make the second part of our lemon meringue tart, the lemon curd. To do that, grab a medium saucepan and combine the following ingredients. We're going to put 4 whole eggs, 1 egg yolk, some sugar, and we're going to whisk this together until the sugar is somewhat dissolved. Then we're going to heat this until it thickens. We're going to use a medium heat here, and we're going to pay attention and watch this the whole time it's cooking. Whisk for a little while, then change to a spatula and continue to stir it until it starts to thicken. You're going to want to keep a watchful eye on the curd and stir it. The only thing that could go wrong is the egg could curdle. So to avoid that, keep it on medium heat, and if you want to, check it with an instant read thermometer. It should read up to 175 degrees. When it gets that close, turn the heat off, and then let's go with the next step. The next step is to add butter. Then we're going to add butter just a little bit at a time and stir this in, letting it melt. We don't want to add all the butter at one time because it will cool the curd and then the butter will have a harder time to melt. Once all your butter has melted into the curd, let's bump it up a little more with some lemon zest. Okay, let that cool a little bit before you taste it. I know it's hard to resist. We're going to check on our tart shell and we're going to pour this warm curd right into that shell. Okay, your tart shell is done when it's nicely browned around the edges and across the bottom of that tart. We're going to let that cool for just a minute, then we'll fill it with the lemon curd. With your lemon curd still warm, pour this into the tart shell, making sure you don't overflow. And we're going to let this cool to room temperature. That'll give us enough time to make our meringue and be ready to go. The last step in lemon meringue tart is, of course, the meringue. So I've separated 4 egg whites here. When you separate egg whites, be very careful not to get any of the yolk in here at all. And make sure your bowl is clean, your whisk is clean, your spatula, everything must be free of any grease. I'm going to combine in here the egg white, the sugar, and a little bit of cream of tartar. That's just tartaric acid. That's going to help give us the most lift in our egg whites and keep them stable. I'm going to whisk this together, and now I'm going to heat this over a double boiler of just simmering water. All I'm doing here is bringing the egg whites to about 160 degrees. This is the Swiss method of making a meringue. I find doing it this way allows the meringue to hold for longer, plus it lets you feel assured that your egg whites have been cooked. When your egg white, cream of tartar, and sugar has come to about 160 degrees Fahrenheit, turn the heat off underneath those egg whites, and we're going to transfer this to a stand mixer. With the whip attachment, we're going to beat this to stiff peaks, so it'll take about 10 minutes. So you want to make sure you get this to stiff peak stage, so check it along the way, and I'll show you what stiff peak stage looks like. When you dip your whisk into the whites and turn it upside down, you want to see that peak hold its own shape. It's tipping over a little bit, but that will be beautiful when we make our peaks on our lemon meringue tart. And we're going to plop this meringue right into the center of the tart and then spread it out from there. So do your spreading as carefully as you can so you don't disturb the curd below. And leave a little ring of yellow around the outside so people know what they're getting into. And now we're going to make those peaks that are so common in lemon meringue tart. Take the back of a spoon and grab some of that meringue and pull it up. You can do this all around the meringue. Any haphazard pattern works. Have some fun with it and make as many peaks as you like. Once you have all the peaks you want, now the advantage to the fact that we made a Swiss meringue is that we don't have to bake it. We can simply take a torch like this and brown those peaks a little bit. If you don't have a torch like this, put your broiler on, pop this under the broiler, but don't walk away. Watch for those peaks to brown, pull it out, and get ready to enjoy it. Once it's browned to your liking, let this set up so that the curd and meringue can be sliced into pieces, and then call everybody over and impress them with what you just did.